Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to HMP, where the kisses are hers and his. I am your host, Adam Portress, and joining me today, he's been wearing his underpants outside of his pants before it was cool. Welcome, the Hartford Hellion, Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet.
I do it because it feels good.
And he's the most beautiful eclair in the whole world, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and I just watched the movie for Bert Convy.
Oh, man. If you're not a Bert Convy fan, I don't know what you're doing on this episode, because we don't need you. We're Bert Convy heaven over here, because today we're talking about Hero at Large from 1980. A movie that has been discussed around the hallowed halls of HMP for many a year. Bruce, if I'm not mistaken, you were the one who originally had brought this up at some point.
Perhaps. Sean and I are both at the age where it was showing up on HBO, and we were probably looking for superhero fare, and there wasn't much out there. So I think we both had similar nostalgic memories of it from about that same time period.
Did you guys know Bert? I didn't even know Bert Convy was an actor. I only knew him as a game show host. Did you guys knew that he was an actor?
I think I did.
Not particularly.
I had no idea.
No, but it's just like a welcome. Welcome, that's for sure. We'll talk about it. Before we get into Hero at Large, we got to say a big thank you to the people who support this show over at patreon.com/HMP. Those people get the awesome pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone. And in that Dinger Zone, you hear us discuss this month's Patreon vote. That's right. We are going to be, as we always do every month, we ask our folks over at patreon.com/HMP what movie they would like us to watch. We give them a selection to choose from. They tell us, and you know what we do? We do that movie. Because that's the kind of guys that we are. We listen to the people that support us. Here are your Patreon votes for the month of February here. We have Head of the Family, Full Moon Classic there and everything. We did Shrunken Heads earlier, but now we did the small heads. Now we want to do the big heads because, you know, medium-sized heads are a little bit boring. So we're going with Head of the Family. Darkman 3. We've covered the other two Darkman movies over the year on this podcast. So it's about time we hit that the final trifecta. Some might say the best Darkman in Darkman 3. You
Boom.
know, is what's his Terminator is Patrick. Oh gosh, what's his name? The T-1000.
Oh, right.
Robert Patrick. Yeah. Is Robert Patrick? It's probably Roger Patrick's favorite Darkman, I would say. We got Flashman, which is an Italian super film from, what's the year on this one?
67.
It looks fantastically bad. All you got to do is look at the poster for Flashman. That tells you everything that you need to know about that flick. Another one for our Patreon vote, we got Brick. Rian Johnson's Brick from, what's that, 2003?
Man, it's early. I don't know. Something
like that. So the Rian Johnson classic, which I saw in the theater and everything, and I forget. Oh, we'll talk about it. If you vote for that, I'll talk to you about how I found that movie out and everything. And of course, the Jean-Pierre Melville's Le Samurai. We're going to be, so be it up to you, people. Patreon.com/HMP. You get to vote on what we watch here, and then we listen to you. And at the same time, too, you get your Dinger Zone, and you help make sure that this show comes back to you week after week, month after month, and my God, year after year. We are rolling up to year 8, boys.
I was wondering where you were going to go after a month. I had no idea.
I tell you, sometimes I skip decades. We're not there yet. We got a couple more to go for that one. But if you would like to see that happen, patreon.com/HMP. We appreciate all of you fine folks for that stuff. And if you can't do that, at least drop on down to the iTunes. Give us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
Spotify as well. They do stars. And for heaven's sake, we're over there on YouTube, man. Well, I think we're at like 11,000 subscribers over on YouTube. So if you haven't, checked us out over there and you're not near a podcatching device and everything, check that out. And we really appreciate all that fine, folks. Let's get into it, boys. Here's the IMDb plotline for Hero at Large. As we all know, IMDb 100% correct in everything they say and or do. A struggling actor buying milk stops a robbery while wearing a superhero uniform promoting a movie. The unknown hero decides to try again. Can he impress his cute neighbor? ? I guess it is the plot. It's not well written, this log line, but indeed, that is the plot. And that plot was written by A.J. Carruthers. He was a story consultant for Friends. No, not that one. The 1979 TV show about 3 11-year-olds that ran for 5 episodes. They had a plucky black kid in it, and that's good.
I missed that one.
Mm-hmm. No. Actually, he wrote The Third Man. No, wait, I'm sorry.
Not that one.
Not the great Carol Reed movie. No. He did the Third Man television show. Okay, so My Three Sons was the best thing that he ever did, okay?
Did he or did he not write the screenplay for Bright Lights, Big City? That's a movie I like.
No.
What a very strange pull. How did you pull that, Bruce Leslie?
Because I'm pretty sure he helped write that when I was looking up his credits. But I might have been wrong.
And this movie is directed by Martin Davidson. You'd probably best know him from Eddie and the Cruisers, which gets a mention in Quentin Tarantino's new book, Cinema Speculation, which I just finished. I finished a book, everybody. Suck it.
Good job, Adam Portress.
Thank you.
Man, in the 5th grade, people wouldn't shut up about that movie.
I don't know what my 5th grade movie was. All right, let's. So, like I said, you guys had both seen this movie previously, yes?
Oh, yes.
I had not seen it all the way through. This is a movie where if you are a kid looking for superhero fare and you're like, oh, that guy's wearing a costume, and then within 30 seconds you know that he's not actually a superhero, you tend to, at least this fella tended to move on at 8 years old. I just moved right on.
I know that I made it all the way through. However, all my fond glowing memories are from about the first 30 minutes.
It was interesting because I didn't read, I knew nothing of this. I knew the name in John Ritter. That was the extent to my knowledge and everything. And so anyone that's
the only thing I loved more than superheroes back then was Three's Company. I was the kind of guy this movie was made for.
So John Ritter is so John Ritter's the thing that gets you in the door here. Outside of that, I know absolutely nothing, and I'm just going, okay, quickly you realize I don't think this guy's going to be getting superpowers anytime soon. I don't think we're going to be flying anywhere at any particular point, which may or may not be a good or bad thing. But before we get into all that, let's, if it wasn't enough, let me sell everybody on this John Ritter superhero flick, because this sucker's got everything. We got the MGM Lion, old school New York, dirty New York. We got overdramatic music and either really good or really bad paper mache dude on top of a van. Wait till you find out what that's for. We meet our lead, and the first thing that we hear is an unexpected pregnancy. Are we going to cover this in a superhero film? Oh, thank God. They're just actors that are running lines. Didn't want to have that discussion in this movie. We got agents and pastrami sandwiches with a game of Who's the Arab? I know we've all played that one. But if you think that's offensive, wait till you see how actory this dude gets. Seriously, actors, why do all of you act like there's a camera on you at all times? Theater people, you're the most guilty of them all. Stop it. Get some help. John Ritter, however, is so infinitely likable that he can take off his shirt and preen around with his chest hair in all of its glory and be a big goof with a superhero commercial on that he sees on TV and relentlessly is hitting on this woman, and you still like him. We got wild flirting with plants, cosplaying in a movie premiere, surprise Kevin Bacon cameo, not to be outdone, a Joyce Brothers Dr. Joyce Brothers cameo, so you know Bruce was excited. We got not so gay, vague gay jokes. It is 1980 after all. But $2.46 for a pack of beer? Why do you even need to rob a store when the prices are that good? We got breaking into a hot set. That Steve is such a charmer. And it ain't just like a TV to tell you that you're not living up to your potential. But Bert Convy is Pimp Dan Marino. Awkward local news galore. We got all of a sudden the movie turns into The French Connection. We got changing clothes in a car while in a tunnel. Who amongst us hasn't pulled that one off? Barrier crashing, car flipping, and wouldn't you know it, bullets sting, and gunshot wounds now just require bed rest. No worries. How old is this movie? Chinese food is so new of an idea in the U.S. that this film mocks it. Also, there's a little line in this movie that I've heard from women far too many times. There's no place for you in my life. Please go back to your apartment. A subway train car breaks out that makes Bullet Train look like the amazing movie that it is. Don't compare them. It's not worth it. Don't do that. We got a crisis of conscience, a big speech, Senator Palantine from Taxi Driver, the Gene Krupa guy from Taxi Driver, the diner from Taxi Driver. What are you trying to say, movie? And the whole house of cards starts crumbling down, then all of a sudden the movie turns into Backdraft. But do you think Kurt Russell could have fought off these fires wearing these superhero PJs? Well, maybe Kurt Russell could, but you know who did wear that costume that makes Puma Man look like Captain America? John friggin' Ritter. That's right. This movie's got everything.
Very nice. I like the way you framed this as a retelling of Taxi Driver, because I thought that myself a couple times, mainly because he drives a taxi, granted. But yeah, I thought that.
But it is.
You also can't help make the comparison because it is dirty, disgusting, Fort Apache, the Bronx, New York. I mean, it is fantastic.
That was what I was surprised to see, is just like that great gritty, dirty New York and everything. And
back when you could still afford to live there.
Yeah, back when you could be an out of work actor and not pay your rent and still have an old lady scream at you in the hallway.
The only other person who can get away with that is Spider-Man.
Yeah. Everyone else, nope, we're kicking you to the curb right away. Big John Ritter fan. I think everybody, like, who doesn't love John Ritter? I feel like there's got to be somebody out there, but they're monsters, right?
Yes.
Mr. Roper had big problems with it.
I've got to say that the people who made this movie should be brought up on criminal charges, because John Ritter is, like, honest to goodness, one of the greatest physical comedians of his day. You know, like, he kind of took the mantle from Dick Van Dyke in that matter. Where,
that's an excellent point I'd never considered.
He is physically amazing with his body. Like, he can make it do whatever he needs it to do. And the fact that they don't use that at all in this movie is a war crime. It's nothing short of a war crime. You have one of the greatest physical comedians of his age. No, you know what? I'm just gonna say he's the best. He's the best physical comedian of his age, and this is what you make him do. It was angering me. I was like, halfway through the movie, like, why aren't they using John Ritter? Why aren't they using John Ritter? It's ridiculous.
They had him do a couple of sit-ups, you know. That's something.
Look, John Ritter was a very good-looking man. He's a very, very, like, unassuming good-looking man too. So, like, he's sneaky good-looking, you know, which is the kind of good-looking you want to be.
That.
Yeah. He's the kind of good-looking you want to be. Same with Ann Archer. Is that who that is? That's Ann Archer,
yes,
right?
That's Ann Archer.
Yeah. Same with Ann Archer. Not sneaky hot, just hot. Just good old fashioned regular hot in this movie. My Lord, getting it done, that lady.
Yeah, and like you said, he's an unassuming guy, and then, like, it's weird, like, he takes his shirt off and, like, that's it. Like, oh, okay, I see what the ladies are going after here.
I will say, though, I remember, like, in the early 80s, like, every guy our dad's age, like, looked like that by accident, because you just couldn't help but be in much better shape then than you are now.
Yeah, and they all had like that perfect.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about, hey, I grew up around a lot of physical laborers. Nobody went to the gym.
Gotcha.
Nobody did sit-ups. But, you know, my uncle, my dad, whatever, they'd take their shirts off and they would look like that, hair and all. Usually they needed a bit of a shower. They had a little odor that went with it. But it was just like that natural. You're not eating fast food 8 times a day. You're working physical labor. It's just like you don't have the internet and you've only got 3 channels and they show soap operas for half the time. So they were just like, they didn't try and they looked kind of like that. I had a big flashback.
I'm going to the yard. I can't be here while this is on the television. There's nothing else to do. There's no internet. I'm going outside and I'm tilling the land.
Like, the only guys that worked out back then were like the Muscle Beach types, you know?
Oh, yeah. The rest were just kind of like that country bred mother. Just big, giant dude that looked like he could punch through a wall. But Ritter's not that way, but at least, like, he is in surprisingly good shape here. I was thinking he'd be a lot skinnier than he was, but maybe, I don't know that he buffed up for this at all, but you know, it's that era and everything, but.
Yes, the answer is yes, he did.
He buffed up for this role.
Yeah. He buffed up for this role. Yeah. I mean, think about, like, Christopher Reeve talking about being Superman, right? Is that he was always in good shape. He like he said, he would say in interviews, I was always in good shape, but I needed to get into way better shape to play Superman. It's going to be the same thing with John Ritter. It's the same thing with guys who work at Marvel now. Like, oh, okay, so I'm doing this. Well, then I'm going to have to do that. You know?
I think they've got a lot more science on their side these days than they did back then, and that shows.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's why we always say, you know, like, this actor in that movie was actually older than this actor in present day. Well, you know, he also didn't have all the horse testosterone and stuff back then.
That's why the current, like, you know, 4-time Mr. Olympia is 28 years old, but looks like he's like 38 to 42.
Man, you know what I just learned this week? This is insane. I learned that Wilford Brimley is 50 years old in Cocoon.
Oh yeah,
It's ridiculous. That's really an eye opener.
That is insane, man. That poor guy. Which means in the thing, he was he was when's the thing? 81?
80, 81, something like that. Yeah.
It means he
He's
was
like
40.
early 40s. Yeah.
He was a very young 40 in the thing. What happened to that poor fella? But to his credit though, he's the original Morgan Freeman where he just looked exactly the same
Yeah.
for 50 years and everybody's like, "Man, that guy isn't aging at all because he was already 60 but he was 30."
Oh, I love his bit in the thing. I'm fine now. I can go inside. It's fine. Everything's cool. Like, no,
Yeah,
you are not.
with
sir.
that noose, looking through the noose.
Everything's cool. Like, no, it is not.
So, we had, did you guys have to look up and verify that it was Kevin Bacon just to make sure?
Oh my gosh, no.
Because he's totally uncredited. I know, but it's like he's totally uncredited. I don't know how I'd missed that all these years. So I did have to, like I couldn't look it up through Hero at Large. I had to look it up through Kevin Bacon to verify it.
1980, stellar year for old Bacon here. You got this movie, you got
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th, looking good.
Yeah, getting it done.
Boy's starting to get there.
Throwing around gay slurs, no problems.
Hey, listen.
Actually, he doesn't do it. It's the other guy.
Well,
so, that bus that he gets on after the movie opening and they got all the actors dressed like Captain Avenger in there. When I was a kid, that gave me just the best feeling. Like I thought the coolest thing in the world would be riding on that bus. Now as an adult, I look at it and I'm so thankful I don't have to ride on that bus. And that's what 40 plus years of perspective will do for you.
Now, did you want to be on the bus like as an actor or as just like a passenger?
A kid on the bus.
I wanted to be a kid on that bus full of superheroes with the gigantic whatever it's made out of, paper mache,
gotta be paper mache.
Captain Avenger on the top.
Looks like it was put together.
I just thought, man, I wish I lived in New York instead of Kentucky so I could be on buses like that. Like I thought that was an everyday thing.
They certainly make it seem that way. But here's my question to you, fellas. Now, we've all heard of, and I've told a story. I don't know if it was on this show or a Dinger Zone or whatever about seeing a local Ronald McDonald and stuff. So there are people that go around to the different establishments and whatnot. But here's the thing, though: if Ronald McDonald is going around to do a promo at a McDonald's, he ain't hanging out with 15 other Ronalds inside of a truck that's got Ronald on top of it, and then drop it off in front of all the kids. And how stupid are these kids who are sitting there and not just go like, what are the other cats sitting up in this thing?
I mean, how else are you going to do it? You're going to have them each taking a cab. You're going to have them riding the subway fully costumed. This is New York before megaplexes, so who knows how many screens they're dropping people off at.
One. Well, they also won't care. I mean, that's the part that we're not getting here.
That's true.
Is that they don't care. Like, listen, we paid you $50 to make an appearance. However it takes, however you get there is how you're going to get there. Like they don't care about that. It's kind of hold on, please. So it's one of those things with movies where this movie in particular has a huge reality problem. So that's part of the problem. That's something where you'd be like, huh? Or the guy who's the Burt Convy character. He's a movie publicist, but he also works for the mayor. That's not a thing that happens. Also, you got a who I'm guessing Ann Archer is probably supposed to be the prop master on these series of dog food commercials, right? Mm-hmm. That her not being completely looking the way she does and not being completely and utterly macked on by every single person on that set, and it's 1980. I mean, my God, she would one, hate her job because she'd be like, I can't work under these conditions anymore. She would have to quit. And two, then there's an actor across the hall who's hitting on her. She would rather murder that guy. It's kind of the problem with this movie overall is just the reality of it, even within its own rules, it doesn't really work. And that's my big issue with this movie.
I will say this though.
It's also part of
her movements are very much. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's also part of what makes it fun, though, to me, is the kind of the ridiculousness there, because we are, I think, kind of in the era of Son of Sam, and they're talking about her taking in strays as if this isn't the first time she's taken in an injured stranger to her apartment. So
What
that also is pretty ridiculous.
But they were talking about dogs, man. That was
Yeah,
dogs.
it's like, oh, I got a stray cat from the city, and then like he makes like, oh, like, you know, we know what they're talking about, but like we try to pretend like we don't.
Totally missed I totally missed that. I thought they were referring to like she takes in stray humans from time to time.
No, she she's trying to play it cool or whatever, and like and at the same time too, it's like this guy, I don't care who he is, he should be a little bit wary of the things that are going on. He is this cat's clueless.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm convinced though about her though. She's great. You know why?
Yes.
Because she's the most convincing. Because you have no idea what this woman is thinking at any point. She doesn't have clear motives. She's all over the place. She likes this guy. She hates this guy. Are there rhymes and reasons? No, there are not. She hates him in one scene. She hates him in one scene. She loves him in the other. And she's like, I hate you. You're a piece of garbage. You live out in the road. And then like 2 scenes later, she's like, hi.
Yeah.
You're like, what? What happened? What transpired? What missing scene are we getting here? And it's not because she goes, oh, I saw him as the superhero, as a Captain. What's his name again? Avenger. I didn't see him as Captain Avenger, and I go, ooh, I'm hot and bothered now. It's just like, oh, he's just still him. He's still him, but somehow you like him now. None of this makes sense.
He takes that Costanza method, the by minute.
Oh yeah,
he is always around and not giving up.
He is wearing them down like there ain't nobody's business. Now I'll give him this, for the most part, he's not being super rude about it. He's just being very like, come on, girl, get with it. And like she's not having any of it until she does.
There's I guess the straining of incredulity to me with this movie is just that they go so realistic with the superhero part of this. Like if it was a fabulous world where like crazy things are happening, I would have no problem with the rest of like that things just aren't making much sense. But because it's trying to be grounded in reality and the fact that it's really New York. I mean, when we get that scene on the subway, and that subway just looks like the most, like it must have been like, I can't believe I got to sit here during that era of New York subway. It's just like, oh, there's the good stuff right there. That's literally what hell looks like. It's amazing.
And I don't know why, but I think that train was going to New Jersey. Don't ask me why. I just look at it, I'm like, that's going to Jersey.
His second attempt at fighting crime, though, when he goes out in the taxi and listens to the police scanner, going all the way back to my youth, that one always just fell flat for me. Like something about that doesn't track with what he's trying to do in the rest of the movie. Like first off, he's in a taxi. Like there's no hiding your identity. Taxis have numbers and stuff on them. It's not like he's in the Batmobile or on a motorcycle that he borrowed from his neighbor or something. Like it'd be cool if he borrowed a dirt bike and that's what he used. But I really wanted to see him more like on foot, out of the shadows and stuff. The whole thing just didn't work for me. And you're ramming the other car with your taxi. Aren't you going to have to answer for those scrapes and scratches?
With your taxi from the 60s,
Yeah.
Like it's an old taxi too. It's not even a modern day taxi by that
The viewers will be confused if we don't give them the old taxi.
But I will say this. They loved shooting that chase scene. It's so clear that they were just like, maybe it was all second unit was just having a super fun time getting to do whatever they wanted to do. But the action in the chase scene and stuff, surprisingly good, surprisingly well shot, decent amount of tension, even though it's, it is what it is. I do love the, before they actually make initial contact, the fender of the car has got a little dent in it already. Love that. So it's clearly not their first take with that and everything. But they rub a little bit of metal there and everything. And it's shot far better than this movie should ever have, I think. But I was impressed by that, actually.
That may be part of why it feels so out of place to me, is that the feel, even if it's better, that still feels different.
Oh yeah, it doesn't belong in the movie at all, but that's also kind of why it's dope, is that it doesn't belong there. It's like, this is so stupid. Why are you? I'm like, but by a quarter of the way in, you're like, this is pretty good.
And I do like when he gets shot and he just folds, like he's not trying to push on at that point.
Yeah, puppet strings.
He just goes down and like it is at this point where it really starts to, remind you and become apparent. Oh yeah, this guy literally has zero superpowers here, and oh yeah, bullets exist.
He did not think his clever plan all the way through.
No, I'm like, and of course, jumping ahead a little bit, but with the second, the staged fight there and everything on the subway, it's so bad, but it's so good that it is so bad. And that's what, like, I love how horrible that is staged, because I feel like that is staged badly on purpose for that thing. And because they can clearly shoot better than this. We've seen them do it. So
I feel like for the purposes of fan service, it might have been nice if they'd had a few more like setups for him to smash instead of just one. Maybe do a little montage style or something. But I felt like I could have had them driving that home a little bit more, because my mind immediately goes to Rocky 3, and they have the montage of all the tomato cans that they're setting up for him to fight, and he's ducking like the real challengers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have made more sense too. But they kind of had like there's not like a machine that builds big movies yet, they're still trying to figure it all out, which is kind of the fun of this movie too, is that like, oh, you imperfect weird little child, this movie, I gotta talk about my favorite thing about this movie. My favorite thing, and it's not even close, and you guys know, as I've said at the beginning of the show, I love John Ritter. My favorite thing in this movie is Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy as the mayor. I love Kevin McCarthy so much. I totally forget how much I like him until he pops up in some strange movie like this.
Well, just real quick though, he's not even the mayor though, because the mayor's the guy, the Palatine guy, the guy from Taxi Driver. He's like the mayor's dude. Like he's
yes.
Guy.
Sorry.
Yes,
like deputy mayor.
Spin City made me know that exists in New York.
That's right. It's a deputy mayor. You're right. I'm sorry.
I was confused when the movie was going on too. And I was just like, oh, okay. And then I had to put it all together.
He is he always plays the same guy. He never doesn't play Kevin McCarthy in a role, which is totally fine by me. The same guy he is in UHF is the same guy he is here. And it's totally fine by me. The fact that he is no longer with us, at least I don't think so, because he hasn't been in a movie in 10 years. So I'm going to guess he's not with us anymore, is kind of a shame, because we're missing that flavor from movies now. And just seeing it, like, he died in 2010. So like just the command that he has whenever he's on screen, my eye immediately goes to him no matter what's going on, whether it's Inner Space, or Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It doesn't matter. I'm just a huge Kevin McCarthy fan.
I feel like they don't make him like that anymore. The actor that you're just going to call on for the same kind of stock role, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, you're not going to get a better Kevin McCarthy than Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, you got there's guys like that, and Stacy Keach kind of falls into that category. What's his face? Oh, I had his name a second ago, but there's a couple of dudes that just have that kind of you're that guy, and you may be that dude in everything, but boy, you are the best at that. And he's definitely one of those guys. When he comes on, you're just like, oh yeah, there you go.
Man, guy worked right up to his death. Jeez.
See, some of these dudes, man, they get on that horse and they don't get off until that quarter goes out. The score. Let's talk about that. Like I said it right at the top there. I don't the score's fine, but especially at the beginning, I don't know why it's so over the top and John Williams-esque in this movie that doesn't belong in. It is just relentlessly pounding you, and I'm like, what movie are we about to watch? And it doesn't match up with anything that we see post that.
The only thing I could think is they're trying to match the energy of Superman.
Yeah.
Yes.
From 2 years prior.
Yeah, they're clearly going after that Superman money. Especially with having that billboard in Times Square, you have all of that openingness. Hey, imagine if John Ritter was Superman. I mean, that movie basically sells itself in 1980, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what happened. That's how you sell that movie. But you're right, and the rest of the movie is not nearly as bombastic Thank goodness, because
Yeah.
if that was the soundtrack for the entire movie, this would have been a very, very hard movie to watch.
They dial it down, thankfully. New York is gorgeous. I love the
Hmm.
dinginess of it all. Having, seeing Times Square, in we'll call it 79, because probably when they shot.
Sure.
To see that New York and everything, and have that Times Square, and having, stood there myself and seeing the differences, between, 40 years, 40, 50 years worth of stuff. It's like wild. It's so cool to just kind of see what remains the same, what looks sort of different and whatnot. But just that different era of New York, it's just so good. And there are a couple of shots where like their walk and talk down the street and everything on the sidewalk and stuff look fantastic, that you can just tell was clearly actually shot in New York and stuff. So it's like stuff like that is just brings another level to this that today we would just shoot on a crappy back lot in Atlanta. No offense to Atlanta, because they're fine, but they're not. That ain't New York City.
I agree. Look, man, I think that there's certain things that you shouldn't cheap out on. That's one of the things.
Hey.
If your movie is in New York, shoot it in New York.
You mean you didn't believe Shrunken Heads was actually in New York?
No. I was fairly certain that was on Planet Cuckoo.
Yeah, that wasn't even the good backlot. That wasn't even Universal's backlot. It was a different one.
That was our magical castle in Berlin or wherever the heck it was that they were shooting all that crap.
Now, do you guys have any idea like what the budget might have been on this, or any guesses? I don't know. It's not like a game where I have the answer. I'm just kind of curious, because this does feel like something from that time where it's like you don't have to make the best movie out there. You just have to make something for people who are bored on a Tuesday evening to go to.
I don't know 1980s budget numbers and stuff, but if I'm to venture a guess, I'm gonna say $5 million.
Yeah, probably. It ends up making almost $16 million total. I do know that part, but I don't know how much it costs to make. But if you're shooting in New York, you already got to double what you think the budget is. So it's probably $6 million altogether.
And a lot of this just is probably a side effect of my age, that I'm not 66 or 70 years old, but I don't know anybody who remembered this from the theater. Everybody remembers this from HBO, so I don't know if this was one of those that really found its legs on cable, because cable was kind of a new cool thing in 1980, at least for the parts of the country I lived in.
I would go so far as to say I don't think this movie ever found its legs, Bruce. I mean, you have to be a very specific age in order to know what this movie is, and you and I just happen to hit that age. But Adam, you probably had never heard of this movie, right? Until we started bringing it up.
No, not until you guys had mentioned it and everything.
Right?
Not
because
it's like
usually
John
a lot
Ritter
of people
superhero movie.
our
What?
age, Sean.
Yeah.
Weird. So I think that having that HBO era of like, this is on, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is on, and Beastmaster is on, literally just 24 hours around the clock. Those are the three movies that they're showing on HBO.
When did they start pushing Highlander? Because that's how I discovered Highlander too. But that might be a few years later.
It's probably the early 90s, because that movie comes out in 87, 88.
Oh, I thought it was older than that. Okay.
It could be, but I do remember that I was working in a video store, and the guy who worked in the video store with me told me, he's like, "Have you ever seen this movie called Highlander?" And I'd never heard of it.
Yeah, it was 86, but it's one I had never heard of until the cable run. But yeah, 86. So by then I would have been more tuned into the theater runs on stuff too. Mm-hmm. So,
do you guys know what HBO stands for? Hey, Beastmasters. Hey, Beastmasters on.
There you go.
Hey, Beastmasters on. That is the best. Did you just come up with that, Adam?
No, that was actually in Don Coscarelli's book. He mentioned how it's like people had mentioned that to him over the years, and he's just like, yeah, I got a good paycheck off of all the times that thing played on HBO throughout all the years. So it's like, yeah, I dig that. Hey, Beastmasters on HBO. I'm gonna tell you what.
Me and my cousin were not allowed to watch HBO after 8:00, so we had to sneak if we wanted to watch Beastmaster.
I love the production on this movie. Ritter's apartment's a little bit kind of nah, but like her apartment, we'll call it, for lack of a better word, the ad executive office and stuff like that, with your just giant posters and everything. they took a lot of time in a movie that doesn't look like they should have taken a lot of time for this sort of stuff.
I want to say that the set dressing in this movie is really well done because it is telling a story behind the actors, which doesn't happen very often in movies that are one, this size budget, and two, this era. So I think that having it be, because you can tell who lives in John Ritter's apartment just by looking around in his apartment, which I think is great. And I love that they're going for something completely different in Ann Archer's apartment because they want to make it look like even though they live in the same building, they basically live in different worlds. And I think that that was really the people who worked on this movie, specifically in art department, did a really great job.
He comes in and like you know exactly what's kind of going on in his place, and like you said, when he goes over to hers, he's completely shocked. He's just like, "What is this? This is how people live over here. This is very nice. Your place."
Do we have the same zip code? Are you sure?
A completely different life.
Yeah.
But I would say that the way I would refer to the set dressing on this is kind of like with sporting events and officials. You don't notice them unless they mess up. The fact that I wasn't distracted at all, didn't really notice it, I think is a big positive for something like this, because how often in old movies do you watch it, like older movies, do you watch it and you're like, wow, they try a lot harder nowadays than they did back then. But I wasn't for a moment pulled out of it by anything like that.
Well, you know, everybody take a drink. I'm about to mention Red Letter Media again, but Red Letter Media has the perfect line for this, which is you might not have noticed it, but your brain did. And that is literally the absolute perfect way to describe good set dressing. And that is exactly what this movie is.
And it makes sense that this woman would have the lovely appointed apartment that she does, because guess what? That's what she's in. That's her business. So yeah, she would have a quite well, decorated apartment there and everything. So
right.
It makes sense. Also, I loved the movie set scene for the commercial and all that stuff with the dog.
Yeah.
I didn't like the dog though.
The dog was a jerkwad. That's true. But everything was so on point. The banter with all the behind the scenes and everything. The guy they had playing the first AD was just chef's kiss. Oh my God. I was like, that dude who I was just like, I looked up because I was just like, this had to have been somebody who was just working it. Because he spat it. He spat it like nobody's business, and you can tell when somebody's faking most of the time. He was an actor. Dude was an actor. Unreal.
Get out.
I was like, wow, man. He'd been in a decent amount of stuff and things too. So all those people that were in there, while they all looked like professionals, doggone it, they were pretty much all actors. I was shocked at that, and I thought that was very, very cool. But that first AD, I was like, that dude's got to be in. He's rattling off like ain't nobody's business, and he's an actor. I was like, shoot. And not only that, they wrote it. Maybe they did a rewrite. Maybe that's where the magic came in, where he was just like, this is not what people say on. I've worked on movies. Let me tell you what a first AD says, and goes through all that. Maybe he rewrote, because this movie doesn't seem like it would know so spot on what an actual set was like. But that's basic, of course, given his the writer's other credentials. If you look him up on IMDb, maybe he didn't write that bit.
And it's like these kind of scenes, like on the commercial in the movies, those would show up from time to time in this era. And that's the kind of stuff that always made me like mesmerized or just as curious as heck about what it's really like when these things are getting filmed. So those little glimpses, like in this, which is one that probably is one of the first I ever saw, actually kind of had a pretty big impact on me, because it made me really want to be a fly on the wall for some of that stuff.
Bert Convy again. I call him Pimp Dan Marino in this, because that's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, that's how he looks. Yeah.
If you put Dan Marino in those glasses and everything and unbutton his shirt a little bit, put him in a gold necklace, which, by the way, I love. Again, tiny little stupid choices that they make with that guy. Is his watch is on the outside of his sleeve and everything. Which was like a Ralph Lauren popularized that, at least in America, probably just a couple years prior to that and everything. So it's just like really neat, tiny little things that don't need to be there, but are there. And just, I don't know, like I love picking those tiny little things out. It feels like in 1980 they cared a little bit.
I'm really impressed with your knowledge of watch fashion from the era there.
I know some things.
So, I'm looking around at Bert Convey's uh, uh, biography here, and it looks like he's just a guy who was in, like, doing walk-ons in every TV show that has ever existed, and then he's in Cannonball Run, and Cannonball Run is 1981, and I know that once he's the host of Win, Lose, or Draw. You can tell that Bert Convey and Burt Reynolds are friends off air, because the way that they talk to each other on that show, even as a kid, I was like, oh, those
Well,
guys are actually friends.
I don't know if you
And-
ever noticed, but Win, Lose, or Draw was a Burt and Burt production.
right. And that makes sense. So, they're executive producers on that show. So Bert Convey, he just transitions from like journeyman actor to guy who's on like the Love Boat, and doing one-offs on Macmillan and Wife or whatever, and then he's in Cannonball Run, and then he becomes a game show host until he dies in 1991. So, like, I guess it's that era of people where you don't know where they come from. Like when you watch the Hollywood Squares in the 70s, you like, oh, that person's just famous for being famous,
Yeah.
And we have that now too. It's just with reality stars instead of people who, probably did every TV show in the 60s, because they're probably studio actors, I'm guessing, and they just did all of the, like, oh, I'm an ABC actor, so I do all of the ABC shows. These are all just guesses. I don't even know.
I got a guess. I got a guess as to the Burt Convey Burt Reynolds connection. I got a guess.
It's Cannonball Run, right?
I was thinking hairpiece dealer.
Do
they not have like
that?
It looks the same. Like they look like they go to the same hairpiece guy. If you look at that era, it all adds up.
It's
all there.
I don't know how I didn't notice that. But maybe because I'm just starstruck by seeing Bert Convey again.
Listen, it's magnificent. It's perfect, and that's also kind of the giveaway, is because it is so damn perfect. You're just like, and if you look at it again, think of that same Burt Reynolds era. He had that same perfect kind of hair where it's just like nothing, not a stitch out of place. Wonder why?
It's true. Man, I usually have really good wig dar too. Not this time.
No, pretty sure. I mean, listen, his ghost can come back and haunt me in the night and tell me I'm wrong. I'd welcome it, but we'll see. We'll see. we'll leave that up to the spirit. Spirit of Bert Convey, can you please come and tell us whether or not you wore a wig? I didn't wear nothing, baby. And he punches you right in the face for even suggesting as much. Overall, the speech is weird. I'm concerned for this town. I'm concerned for the city of New York. And the fact that their whole mayoral campaign is like that rests upon the shoulders of an out of work actor I don't even know that they technically even know that he actually did those, the heroic thing or whatever. I don't even think they quite even half believe that themselves. But yet they try to, I'll at least give them credit. They said we need to send a car for you. I'll give him credit there. Credit where credit is due, movie. At least you thought that through. But of course, he shows up at the last second and just goes, "This isn't for me. This is for all of you." And then the great shots of every New Yorker just going, "Yeah, we believe in you, Spider-Man," or whatever your name is.
Hey, he's one of us. He's just a kid.
And then the weird thing is like right after the big speech and everything, they have like an impromptu press thing, but it's mixed so badly that you don't know what the hell's going on. Everybody's screaming, the crowd's too loud, and you're just like, this is not arable for television. No one's going to put this out.
Did you guys ever listen at all to Howard Stern the first couple of years he went to satellite radio?
No, I stopped listening to him maybe like a year or two before he made that transition.
Well, there was a channel called Howard 100 News, and the lady here, the pushy reporter, she's an actual New York local news person named Penny Crone, and she wound up being one of the fixtures of those first couple of years on Howard 100 News. So that was another weird, like, proto cameo.
Wow, that's strange.
Crone, what a name that is! Holy moly! Hi, I'm Penny Crone. Are you a supervillain? Maybe.
Well, they didn't show the other candidate for mayor because, boy,
True.
it would have been interesting if the other candidate for mayor had to get his own superhero and then him and John Ritter had to fight.
Now, that would have been interesting. Like, have the other guy for mayor, like, he gets a superhero, but, like, his superhero is, like, hell-bent on disaster, and he becomes the villain, and the villain and the superhero have to fight. That's more fun than what happens in this story.
It's a whole
It's the
USA
guy who's
Captain America thing.
It's the guy who's running for governor in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, and his superhero's the little guy who's going to sweep.
Yeah, I'm sweeping up crime.
And then when the building catches on fire, the other guy is too cowardly to run in and save the kid, and John Ritter does. That's how the mayor wins the election, because voters are stupid.
I am like, again, I don't know where this comes from, where the character, what his motivation. I mean, obviously he wants to save somebody in this case, but like overall, when you think of like the space eye view of all this, for what purpose? Is it to get
the right thing to do? I think we're just walking away that it's who he really is.
This thing, no, who this guy really is a horn dog. This guy wants to get some action.
Well, okay, that's his booty ticket is saving that kid.
That's the only thing I can figure.
Look, man, none of us are made of stone. That's a 1980 Ann Archer, sir.
Listen, I mean, you want both of these beautiful people to get together. You want that for sure. You're confused by all of it. You're not sure why they would like each other, either of them, quite frankly. I don't know why either one would like the other one, but they're good looking. I think that's the answer that we get.
I think so, yeah.
And they're across the hall from each other, and that's the way that the screenplay has to go. Otherwise, the movie is over in 5 seconds when he gets a job, being in a play. Which, by the way, I love. That's another great thing that John Ritter does well, is act within acting. He does that. Yes, he does that a lot in a lot of different movies and stuff that he does, and to where he's just like, oh, I'm going to take away from me and then kind of do a version of me that is kind of crappy. But like, that's what's so great about it, is that's clearly him, leaning into that sort of stuff. Before we get to the thing here and everything, again, so many weird Taxi Driver things. I don't know why it is. I see the Gene Krupa guy at the beginning of the thing. He's the one that's just going pow, pow, pow. That's literally the dude from Taxi Driver. They go to the literal diner that Peter Boyle and all of them are talking in, making bets and a couple racial slurs. But like that's the diner that they're in. We got the guy who was playing a politician in Taxi Driver is now the mayor of New York City. I don't know. I don't get it. It's so wild, but I love it. I mean,
it's New York only has so many diners you can film in and so many actors that are willing to work, right?
No, this is like, you don't get the three-peat there without being wildly specific. You are just,
I would love it. I would love it if the order these movies were made were switched and it turned out Taxi Driver was just heavily influenced by Hero at Large. Now that's the world I want to live in.
Now, what's really great, I'm just kind of speaking of Taxi Driver's mentioned in Quentin Tarantino's new book, Cinema Speculation. Something that I never really put together is how, like, that movie is pretty much just The Searchers. And I was like, oh my gosh, it totally is.
Yeah.
Paul Schrader's rewritten The Searchers a couple of times in a few of the movies that he's done. When you think about, what is Hardcore about? Hardcore is about a guy whose daughter gets gone and now he's got to go and get her and everything. It's The Searchers. The man's redone The Searchers like 3 or 4 times.
Wow. That's crazy.
I get The Searchers confused with The Rescuers.
And a little bit different. Not quite so animated, the other all right, let's get down to, or before we get down to it, rather, my goodness, let's find out how. Oh, this is going to be a good one. I think we're in for a good one with this one. We got to find out how this John Ritter quote unquote superhero film relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Why, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh,
help is on the way, Mr. Stallone. Hero at Large is one of those easily forgettable films from the early 80s that you can't really blame on studio executives due to its release date. I don't think there's a time of year this movie would have gone on the big box office success ever. To give you an example of this, Hero at Large premiered in theaters on February 8th, 1980. This is what the top 5 at the box office looked like in February of that year. 1 is American Gigolo. Number 2, Hero at Large. Number 3 is a movie that also doesn't exist called The Last Married Couple in America. What? I've never heard of that movie. Number 4 in its 7th week, the action-packed family comedy Kramer versus Kramer. And a week later, the re-release of Jaws 2 would come out, earning $4 million in just its re-release. It's not like they did anything different to it. They just put it in theaters again because the studio suits looked around and were like, hey, everything we have in theaters right now is a total bummer. Even our superhero comedy is a bummer. You know how it looks like John Ritter might have died in an apartment fire at the end? Maybe we need to re-release something fun for the kids like Jaws 2. Hero at Large would go on to gross almost $16 million, and that might not seem like a lot of money. But if you adjust for inflation, it comes out to roughly about $15 trillion in today's money, I think. I'm not a math genius. The director of Hero at Large is Martin Donovan, who directed a few movies you might have heard of, like Adam said earlier, Eddie and the Cruisers, and The Lords of Flatbush, that also starred you, Mr. Sylvester Stallone. There are many stories around the set of Lords of Flatbush, the most famous one, of course, being that that's where the Richard Gere gerbil rumor was started by you, by the way, which you totally deny, Mr. Stallone. But also, another story is that your co-star Henry Winkler based his performance as Arthur Fonzarelli on you. That's almost as impressive as the gerbil rumor, which is still my absolute favorite Hollywood rumor of all time. And that's your Stallone connection this week. Director Martin Davidson, who is still alive, by the way. Good job by you, Martin. I hope to hear from you soon. Your pal, the Hartford Hellion.
Man, I tell you what, it is going all over the place here, man. You mentioned American Gigolo, written and directed, Paul Schrader. There you go. I'm telling you, the man's got his fingers in all the pies this week. My goodness. All right, here over at HMP, we have our own patented Robin rating system. That's where we take the movie that we watched and compare it to a Robin that has been throughout the history of Robins. Bruce, where does Hero at Large lie on the Robin rating system for you?
Well, it's really, really tough for me on this one to pull apart the strands of what's nostalgia and what's joy, because this is still giving me that kind of golden glow that made me feel like a kid again at a few times in the first 30 minutes or so, up through the first heroic act. Then I definitely feel the drag that makes me amazed that I continued to watch through this as a kid. Mm-hmm. But I still, at the end of the day, like the movie. And if people haven't seen this movie, which I think this applies to a lot of the folks listening, you probably haven't seen this one. It's free on Tubi. Go check it out. I give this a low Tim Drake, just to encourage you guys to at least go watch through the first heroic act and see what you think.
I would and do it within a decent amount of time to watch this, because this was one that, like, because you guys had mentioned this like way back when and everything, but it was very, very difficult to find. And as of this recording, it's free on Tubi, so there's a very easy way for you to see it right now, and costs you nothing. So that's always a good thing. Sean?
The biggest thing to recommend it to me is the stuff that they used to make for movies that they can't make anymore, like blatant racism used as a joke. Like, think of John Ritter doing his Chinese impression because it's cute and fun around this girl he really likes. But it is insane that this isn't a movie. Like, it's just so weird, and I love watching stuff like this, or just the gay panic that's in this movie all throughout, or just the straight up homophobia that's at the beginning of this movie.
It's got everything. It's got a little homophobia. It's got a little anti-Semitism. It's got just about everything in it, to be honest.
It's true. And it's so jarring at times that I know this makes me a bad person. I find it really funny.
Because it is. It's funny. That's what, like, sometimes you look, like, at least for me, I look back and I see that stuff, and it's funny because it's just like, oh my God, this was acceptable. And that's why it's funny. It's just like, oh my, out in public in front of God and everybody, you're just like, I'm being a horrible person. Just like, keep it to yourself.
In 1980, it's funny. Then you watch something made in like 2002, and then it's kind of alarming that, like, wow, we were still doing that.
Yeah, that's true. It is true. If it's in 1980, it's funny, but you're right. Or like Like Bill and Ted probably shouldn't be throwing down the other F word,
Yeah.
probably not, but they did.
I mean, what was the movie where Val Kilmer's character was named the F word?
Oh, Gay Paris.
Well, I mean, with that name, I mean, you're kind of putting it on Front Street right there for everybody to see. So,
That's Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and
Is
that
that what it
movie's
is?
amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's like the first time I watched that, it was a fairly old movie by the time I watched it. And then that just was the real shocker. I was like, wow, we were still doing that at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty but so for the reason of there is so many things that was just totally fine. Because keep in mind also, this movie is PG. So all of these things are totally fine. No one has a problem with any of this. And for that reason alone, I'm going to give it a low Damian Wayne, just because this movie is very hard to watch if you don't have the thing that Bruce and I have, which is oh man, this reminds me of HBO.
Yeah.
Old HBO.
Yeah, for me, I'd put this at a Damian Wayne's kind of right there in the middle. It lives and dies off of John Ritter, and that can be certainly a good thing. And he certainly pulls it off here, as he normally does in the majority of things that he's in and stuff. And like he's one of those dudes that, like, even if he's in something sucky, he tends to be fairly decent in those things. So no surprise that he carries this one with alacrity. Yeah, overall, it's good. There are slow moments and everything. I took a lot of notes, mostly because it was interesting. That was at least to me something that was, I'm like, wow, what so many weird and interesting choices that we're making here, in 1980 before any kind of superhero boom. And like Sean said, they don't know what to do with it at this point. Like they're still trying to figure it out. Superman was here, but like no one knows how to quite capture that lightning in a bottle just yet. So we're just kind of throwing some stuff out there. And like you said, John Ritter becomes a superhero in New York. God, well, 1980, that sells all day long. So if that idea sounds good to you, like I said, check it out. It's on Tubi. It's free. Don't cost you nothing. So, but put a couple of ads. And honestly, the ads not so intrusive. Can I just say that? Good job on you, Tubi. Don't dislike the Tubi. All right, that is it, everybody. Another week down and another episode under our belts here. But do you not worry. We have another episode next week. But the best part about that is, again, you folks over at patreon.com/HMP get to vote on what we watch. Again, let's go over that quick vote here. We got Head of the Family, Darkman 3, Flashman, Brick, and La Samurai. You got a lot of choices here, varying degrees of cinematude. That's a word I just made up. Sure.
Sure.
Got varying degrees of that, so go check that out. Vote for us, and of course, if you want to help swing that vote, patreon.com/HMP, and get yourself some more free stuff in the exact same time. Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
I'm just taking it easy at the meantime. Hopefully, I'll have some stuff to talk about in the future, but just enjoy yourself. Watch whatever you want and look for some other of our fine family of products, such as...
If you see somebody on a porch drinking some lemonade, might be Bruce.
You never know.
It might be Bruce. Sean, where might you be?
We have another podcast called 30 Questions, where we ask 30 questions to the latest of something that is a nerdy property that's usually series television. And whether it's your super train, what was the name of that show?
Snowpiercer,
whether it's Snowpiercer or whether it's the Watchmen TV show from a few years ago, which if you haven't seen it, you absolutely should. It's one of the best series of television that's ever been made, and they did literally the impossible, which is they made something great that Alan Moore had clearly already finished. Even DC can't do that.
Yeah.
So check that out. And your Star Wars, your Marvel television, like we've seen it all, and we've asked 30 questions.
We do all of that kind of good stuff. Just search 30 Questions wherever you find Finer Podcast. It'll be up there. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if this is out to everybody and stuff, but like really cool, neat feature, and I can't believe I'm saying this about Apple Podcasts, but they have a transcript feature in there now that does live transcripts of all the podcasts and stuff that are out there. So no matter what podcast you're listening to, you can hit the little quote thing button at the bottom. It brings up an entire transcript of the thing. It's got like commas and everything. Like it's pretty darn good. I was shocked at how good it is. Yeah, it's common. And get this, dig this. It's searchable. So within that episode,
very
if you
nice.
want to go to the Stallone connection, you can go up to the top, write Stallone, and it'll boop you right over onto that. You tap it, and you're into that portion of the show. Wild.
Wow.
Really cool stuff. I can't believe Apple actually did something smart and intelligent when it came to that app, because they don't like that app from what I've seen. But so good on you. So check all that good stuff out. Check us out again over at our YouTube page. Links for all of this fun stuff are in the show notes, of course. And again, join us here next week for your Patreon vote for Bruce Leslie. Sweet shows that go back from the internet. I'm Adam Porter. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.